Welcome back to another episode of Tech Unhinged, powered by Code District, where tech gets human. I'm your host, Rabia Javeed. My guest today is Randeep Bhatia, the CTO of Splash Music, creator of 10 billion parameter AI model that turns a hum into a song, which has been streamed hundreds of millions of times worldwide. Before Splash, he spent nearly 2 decades at Twitch, Audible, and EA Games. He holds multiple US patents, and he's given over 100 talks around the world, including the AWS Summit keynote. Welcome to the show, Randeep.
Hi, Rabia. Thanks for having me.
You've sat through a lot of AI pilot pitches by now. What's the phrase or buzzword that makes you quietly roll your eyes at this point, that you've heard enough of it?
I will say change management. It's something that I hear a lot, whether it is even an AI pilot pitch or not. And the beauty of change management is it hides everything. It hides the person who brought the changes. It hides the reason the changes were brought in and why some things are not working. So it's what I call actually a hidden jargon that everybody uses in the way of saying, okay, it's going to make everybody's job easier, but why? So yeah.
So, Randeep, everyone's running an AI pilot these days. It's become the boardroom word of the year. In your own words, what is a pilot really, and what's the biggest misconception people have about it?
Absolutely. So pilot is a new name for experiments, what we used to call before AI became a prominent word in the industry. Pilot basically has a goal, a mission, a metric that you're trying to target for a bounded date. And it is not a permanent demo. That's where the catch is when AI pilots go on for months, years, and then that's when they become permanent. That's not an AI pilot anymore. That becomes more of a decision.
But, if you would have to sort of explain it in layman terms for probably someone who's not from a technical background, how would you explain AI pilot? Are those the
So
pilots in the planes or what?
yeah, so absolutely. So let's say that, you are building a car and you want to launch a very specific feature of a car of automatic rolling up of windows and up and down. And you want to see if people start to use that feature or not, or they manually want to roll the windows up or down. Now, for some cars, you can release that feature as a pilot to see whether people start to use this. And while the other cars still have the manual up down, based on the adoption of the people, you will realize, okay, yeah, more and more people are finding it easy to roll the windows up and down. Are we getting any complaints of customers? Are things breaking down and people are unable to get out? Or is it really making people's lives easier so they can actually focus on the driving? And with that, the goal is to basically have a very time-bounded releases, very time-bounded efforts. Okay, within the month number one, we're going to measure the traction of the people using. Within the month number two, we're going to measure the complaints that people are going to bring in. Or within the month number three, are our NPS scores going up for these services or systems that we have launched? And that's what really pilot helps get information out to people, and what we call as an AI pilot as well today.
So there's a much quoted MIT finding that 95% of company AI pilots show no real return. From where you sit, is that the technology failing short or something else?
What MIT has quoted, the 95% of the technology is right and is very much in alliance with what I am seeing around myself as well. And I'll give you an example. So at Splash, when we were trying to use technology to really empower Gen Z and other people to make music, we had a lot of problems in front of us. Should we go and make use of technology to solve this problem end to end? Should we have some humans in the loop? Should we go more heuristic based approach? What the answer should be. And what we really focused on is the product user use case. Is this really going to make people's lives easier? Is this going to become more delightful experience for the user? And that's what truly is a challenge when people divert from there and focus truly on the technology. I often like to quote a quote from somebody that, the best AI model is a model that works for your customers. And that's what truly this is about. Really finding the technology that can make the people experiences much more delightful, useful, and coherent for them, rather than just making a shiny technology that nobody uses, which is what MIT has been quoting the 95% has.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because, my next question is an extension of the last one, that the answer we usually hear or always hear behind it is that, our data wasn't ready. So what does that actually mean? Paint us a picture of what messy data looks like inside a company and why the AI just can't cope with something like it.
This was actually one of the very funny cases that happened at Splash. I'm going to bring Splash again into this. The using of a language that exists in a company needs to be same. And that is very, very important, especially when you don't have humans in the loop. Even when you have humans in the loop, you don't need that same. Now, by definition, a station in music industry is an open-ended playlist. Playlist is just a collection of songs. Now, all it takes is one developer naming station as a playlist in the code base, and AI and the vibe coding ecosystems understands that it is a playlist. Now I'm going to interact with this system as a playlist. That causes a whole lot of messiness in our experiences. Not because the data was like messy, but it was because we did not really name it well. The language was not same. So AI is again a system that looks for patterns on how you are presenting your data. So having first a foundation of what each system means, I'll call it more like an appendix. If a station means an open-ended playlist, have it like that. If a playlist means collection of songs, have it like that, rather than using 10 different versions of a same system. And that's where AI hallucinates. That's where AI gets confused and people get different results, and not the results especially what they expect. Oh, the vibe coding is not working for me. Oh, the vibe coding has completely changed my experience. It wiped my database. Well, because the naming conventions and the data presentation was not there for you.
So, most companies drop AI into their existing way of working and hope for the best. Very few redesign the work itself around it. As a leader, why does that redesign step keep getting skipped?
Redesigning is not easy for any technology leader. Redesign does mean you do bring in change management, the very famous buzzword that we hear all the time. And it also requires a whole lot of changes in the existing ecosystem, whether it is hiring more people, whether it is improving the processes that are existing right now, or even getting more headcount versus, buying something off the shelf and just adding it as a line item on your P&L is a much more easier way for people to do it. Secondly, people do want to treat AI more like an innovation lab than a concrete business school for themselves. We do see a rise of chief AI officer or AI strategist jobs, because that is more like, again, open-ended experiments with no goals, no descriptions, no targets, no dates. They keep on running as an AI pilot. If they work well, yes, they will impact the business metrics. If they don't, they kind of work with less of an authority on the overall business OKRs and metrics, but they do try to influence at times to see whether this has moved the needle or not. And slipping on two boards at the same time, that's where the chaos happens as well. When people try to see if AI is working for them while only treating it as an innovation, open-ended experiment with no metrics to go after. So that's why redesign keeps on getting skipped and people try to find the shortcuts. Okay, let's see if it is going to work or not, because it does become very challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm going to go once again back to the MIT study, which says that buying beats building 2 to 1. You ignored that, when you built your own 10 billion parameter model at a Series A startup. Was MIT wrong, or are you the exception? When should a company actually build?
Honestly speaking, if I had the opportunity, I would have totally bought it or looked into the other. I did look into the other solutions as well. So music is a very unique case. There are a lot of models that exist to improve the quality of a sound or make sure that sound is coming out right. It has less disturbances. Even when we are doing podcasts, transcription models and other models exist. But there is no model that can tell you that something sounds good. Is it musically good enough as well? Now, there are building blocks to it, which means even in building the 10 billion parameter model, we did make use of some of the off-the-shelf solutions to clean out the interferences, to clean out the audio signals, extract out the signals. But then we had to take the matter into our own hands to see, can we come up with metrics first, and can we come up with mechanisms to convert the human input into a musical output, but that is generative enough so it can be measured measured on an automated basis. And that's where we had to go and build our own. And the journey was not okay to go and build the billion parameter from day one. The journey was very much to start with a couple of million parameter models, start addressing the couple of genres of the music, and only with very specific keys to see, is it really going to transform the music or not? Or do we need to bring it more parameters to increase the quality and make it sound musically enough?
It's really hard, to have certain levels of accountability when it comes to AI. Having a human in the picture, you can have someone accountable, but having an AI in the picture and AI hallucinating, it's really hard to track, who's done what wrong. So when should a company start setting the rules, and who's accountable, what the AI is allowed to do, and who checks its work, who takes this responsibility once it's deployed?
Absolutely. So I'm going to bring in a bit of an Amazonian flavor to this. At Amazon, we used to call it "It's always day one," and I like to lay emphasis on it that accountability and data governance is a day one check for any kind of AI work that you want to do. You don't want to check it after something breaks. You do want to check it right at the beginning of the stage when you're deploying it. You do have to build that trust foundation and ecosystem from the very day one, because that is going to put things more into motion about your autopilot that you want to build. An example of this is, waiting for an incident in any of your AI pilot, say, oh, the data did not return, the data started hallucinating, is never going to scale. Nobody really is going to trust the output when it fully expanded, because you need to build the trust in the engineering itself when the pilot is being built.
Randeep, your LinkedIn says, you cut Splash's cloud bill from $5 million a month to $500,000 a year. How did you do it? And what did it buy you beyond the money?
That was one of the big challenges that I was going after. Being a startup, it's not easy to scale, especially in the AI space. Yes, you do get funding. Yes, you do get resources, but it's a common notion. Turn off the lights when not in use, and try to use a better optimized, energy efficient tools when you can. We use it at our home, so why not use it in the cloud? So one of the things I did at Splash is to really open up the product ecosystem and see what exactly is our use case. Is our use case to go after every single genre of music and address it from day one? Or is the goal to really see, are people liking our product from the very basic genre and they are finding delight in that experience? And so from that, I started building the initial foundational model and a couple of million parameters to see, okay, people come in, they make music is being shared across the Roblox. People are finding delight. Good. Now we can expand into it even further. Can we look into the alternate options to what we are using? We were using GPUs before, then we moved into the Amazon custom silicon. Amazon were really friendly with us to helping us carve out strategies that can fit into the startup ecosystem. Being a startup, you're not always training, you're also doing inference at the same time. And to inference, clarifying this, is the output of your training model that can be used by your applications at scale. And that allowed us to really use our hardware that we reserve for our training purposes to be multi-purpose for our application as well. It unlocked the opportunity in half for our cost, that, okay, now we don't have to go after two different sets of hardware. We can just use one to do both. Secondly, we also got the ability to scale the systems up and down on an on-demand basis, which is extremely hard, especially when you're building an open-ended musical problems, because the parameters get so huge over time. And the fourth one was looking out for your adoption of the product. Yes, it's a good idea to build as many billion parameters model as you can. Engineers love to boil the ocean. I'm an engineer at heart, but I'm also a product person at heart. And I really like to see, okay, is this really converting audience from coming to the platform, consuming the information, and then inspiring others and themselves to come in again? And that moment really drives that AI pilot metric to say, okay, yes, this is good. Now let's move on to the next experiment. Let's move on to the next experiment.
So, Radhi, the idea of now engineering music, getting something something out of it. Was it like always a passion, or did Splash turn it into one for you?
Music is something that I've been working since pandemic. I started working in Twitch music, working directly with the artist and giving and building an ecosystem where we can have a fair systems, fair platforms for creators to come and perform and share their stories. Because, musicians and any form of creator works really hard to present it in front of audience. And it takes a lot for them to have a career in this because competition, because of rights, because of so many streams you have to get to make even money in pennies. So that's when it hit me like, can we do something to change this ecosystem? And this changes even significantly with AI because we talk a lot about, okay, something is ethically trained, something is not ethically trained. Then is it just about getting paid? It's actually not, because that's where artists truly like to have is the sense of ownership of their own data themselves. It's less about, okay, the artist knows, okay, we are getting paid. It is more about, okay, you're using our data. How are you going to use our data? What will happen if I move away from you? What will happen if I use another platform? What will happen if I go and start doing tools? And these are all blurry line items, and especially the more indie artists, this gets more blurry because it's about making a career into the field. And at the end of the day, the artist wants to have the reach, the new ways to connect with their fans, their super fans. And in this case, what we were really bringing with Splash is a more coherent experience with Gen Z, which is a very hard audience to target. And that audience treats creators with equity and transparency. And that's what we wanted to have. And we called it out publicly that we work with Gen Z, we make the music available, we ship it to Roblox. And so it is not just about building relations with artists, it is a whole ecosystem, what Gen Z wants and what artists want. And can we be the connecting tissue over?
Yeah, because I see that after reviewing and seeing your work and your contribution in the industry, you did make ethically trained part of your brand. So for the sake of this conversation, I want you to go a bit deeper on this layer and explain to our listeners that what did it really mean for you, and where's the honest line on data ethics after AI?
Absolutely. The goal is basically be upfront, be honest about your data approach, whether you're building AI solutions or non AI solutions. It's not just being under the blanket of, yes, artist agreed and we paid them and it worked. No, it is not just like that. It is about, can you bring them the audience that they're looking for? Can you bring them the community that they're looking for? And that's where the higher bar associates, especially with Gen Z, because Gen Z does love to connect and be in a community where it is much more driven by transparency, honesty, and authenticity. Because at the end of the day, these artists are trying to be authentic on all of these platforms. And that is the connecting tissue with the newer generation that we are seeing over here.
Before I jump on to my next question, Randeep, as a CTO, how did AI affect your, day-to-day work?
It's a blessing in disguise. Blessing in a way that I can do a lot more things. I can research into a lot more things effectively. I can pretty much take off my daily routine task and give it to AI, whether I'm talking about personal life, professional life, and any of those. Other side of the coin is it does increase much more problems because then I am also sharing my data at many different places. Professionally, it also means that I am now relying on tools that I expect them to work in a very explicit way. Third is now I am also getting a whole lot of tools in my company's ecosystem that I may or may not have an idea about. So it does increases the surface area of your exposure, but that also then comes up with a responsibility. Can you manage that exposure? Can you retain? Can you keep everybody in the company aligned? Because every single solution that we see in the market, whether it is model A, model B, and it all changes every single day. Wait for an announcement from company A or company B, and you will see the model charts literally go up and down. But which model is really going to work? Which solution, which tool, or which co-working thing is going to really work for us is really the name of the game. because the companies, even being a startup, change management is not that easy. You still have to go through every single person to see whether you drive adoption, whether you drive the company's ecosystem on top of that. So
you've shipped AI inside Amazon and now inside a startup small enough to fit in one room. What can the small team do that the big enterprise simply can't? And what did the big company get right?
I will say there is one thing that the small companies can do is, the speed matters a lot in the AI ecosystem. We talk about AI evals for product management. We talk about very concentrated bets that companies can do. And that's where small companies slash startups really outshine is very focused pilot, very focused experiences slash experiments they can build rather than building the whole experiences which people have to go through. I'll take an example in this is, you can build a fully blown edtech system, or you can just have a system that converts all of your learning materials into flashcards, because people really love experiences of flashcards. They learn a lot, they catch up a lot, and they pick up a lot. Now that can be an experiment to see, oh, do people want to use AI to build flashcards? Do people want to use AI to do learning? Is AI just a solution that people don't want to use in education? So that can really help you prove. Versus when I was at Amazon, one of the things I really picked up a lot, especially in the leadership, is being the customer obsession and having that built inside the metrics. And that is not an option. That is a requirement. It's something that gets enforced in the writing ecosystem before it gets built. And that's extremely powerful for big companies to have that narratives being presented and truly see what we are working against. So it does help you set up a guardrail ecosystem with checks in place, so there is less diversion. You can catch it early on before it becomes a massive problem, versus startups slash small companies are more open-ended. They can pivot pretty fast, but then that also comes up with responsibility.
Most pilots get measured on their activity, the logins, number of questions asked. What should a tech leader measure from day one instead? Do you have your own kind of a checklist?
From the very day one, the metrics is the number one thing that you should start to measure, and it's not really the number of logins or the DAUs or the MAUs. It is about the rework rate that you have to do from the very day one. Did the user expect what they were expecting when we shipped the product, or did somebody need to intervene, whether AI or whether human or any model, to go and fix it? What was the cycle time to actually go and fix it and deploy? What are the net scores we improved in terms of the customer delight? And did that move the needle of customers coming back? Because at the end of the day, we are all trying to build daily habits, whether it is in music applications, e-commerce, education, health, fitness, you name it. That's the name of the game. But the rework metrics usually gets measured at day 2, not day 1, and that's where these gaps.
Well, Randeep, there's this phrase that I really like, verification tax. If you can't trust the AI, checking its work eats every hour it saved you. So, how do you build something people trust enough to stop double checking it, doubting it?
I like to bring this with an analogy of a receipt that you get when you actually go to a restaurant or a grocery store. You first measure, oh, is this a receipt that I got? Is it from the right vendor? See it first time, and then you start to ignore it. Then you observe, okay, the line items in your receipt. Okay, I got 10 items. Okay, good. 10 and 10, great. The third layer is you go and start to measure, oh, I saw that price for $4.99. Was that $4.99 on my receipt? Yes, it is $4.99. And you start to build the trust. And the last one is the total. Okay, I expect my bill to be around 100. It has been 100. And you wouldn't notice until the bill spikes to 150. So that's a receipt framework that you need to use in your AI workflows. Is start from the very basic, start to measure, and then build the trust on an automated basis and earn your autonomy through that. And this is how humans have been operating since the beginning of the age. So why let AI not be an operational like that? So that's how it.
So, Randeep, a chatbot's mistake is a bad answer, and agent's mistake is a bad action. How big a deal is that difference?
I'll agree that, the agents have their own ecosystem, and if the companies can get the governance and verification right, the chatbot just answers, then it's the same problem that every single organization is failing where the AI pilots are not really doing. And that's where it supports the MIT number as well, because there is no governance, there is no verification built into the ecosystem. So agents don't really go and fix that. They just amplify this problem even further. I'll give you an example. I was advising one of the legal tech companies, and they wanted to build an AI workflow for legal companies to come in and rely on the AI chatbots. For this without having any kind of governance. And this was one of the things that I wanted to build is and suggest them that these governance and these verifications needs to be from the day one. Having an agent on top of your solutions is not going to make the customer experience or customers come back to your platform just because everybody's using agent. But if you build the verification and governance from day one, and maybe do it in a more like, I will say, hold the leash format. So, when you take your dogs to the park, you do hold their leash in the beginning and you see how they behave. So it becomes more of a suggestion. You try to see, okay, how much your dog is actually distracting from the path. And then at certain stages, you do let the leash a little bit loose to see, okay, is the dog really going to go out and do some funny stuff? Same thing with your agents and chatbots. See what the data is suggesting from your agents and chatbots. Do you want to collect the feedback? Yes. Do you want to build the trust layer on that? Yes. And then build the autonomy on top slowly and steadily. There comes a time one day you trust your dog and you trust your agents so much that you do want to let the leash fully autonomous because you have built that ecosystem. Until that receipts framework come in, your bill spikes to 150 and you're like, oh, what happened? So now you know. But even then, you need to be aware that you should not have paid for that bill when it reached 150. You should know that if it was 1500, you would have already paid. Then that's another blunder you would do. So have a guardrail to stop it right there when those thresholds are even getting more and more from the actual thresholds that they should be. So
certainly, moving towards the end of our conversation here, what's the one lesson that you had to learn the hard way in your leadership journey?
Be biased and be empathetic at the same time. Bring your team along is the number one key to success. You are not building alone. I do see a lot of AI companies and AI pilots to really talk about one-person company, two-person company. I'm of a strong believer that people bring in diversity and diversity bring in new ideas, and more ideas meaning the more ground you can cover up in problem solving. Build your path of transition from an AI pilot to a full-scale production ecosystem and set yourself a date. Don't make it an open-ended problem. So yeah.
That's really important, the thing that you said at the last, that do not make it an open-ended ticket because it has to have a date to it, or else you'll keep stalling. Well, Randeep, thank you so much for such a grounded and honest conversation with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.